England, 1863. The rain pattered softly against the library windows of Ravenscroft Manor as Phoebe Ashford's fingers traced the leather-bound spine of Wuthering Heights. She sighed contentedly, finding solace in the familiar scent of paper and ink that had been her closest companions for most of her 22 years. "Miss Phoebe," the sharp voice of Mrs. Hartley, the housekeeper, broke through her literary reverie. "Your mother has been calling for you these past 10 minutes. The entire household is in an uproar, and here you are, hidden away with your books again." Phoebe reluctantly closed her book. "What urgent matter requires my attention this time? Has Caroline torn her favorite dress again?" "Much more significant than that," Mrs. Hartley replied, her eyes widening with importance. "The Duke of Westmoreland is coming to London for the season, and your mother is determined that he should meet Miss Caroline." Phoebe rose from her window seat, smoothing her simple blue dress, plain compared to the elaborate gowns her younger sister favored. "Another aristocrat for Caroline to enchant. How novel. This is no ordinary nobleman, Miss Phoebe. His Grace, Charles Montrose, Duke of Westmoreland, is one of the wealthiest men in England, and unmarried since the tragic passing of his wife 3 years ago. Ah, I see. Mother has found a new target for her matrimonial ambitions." The words slipped out before she could censor them. Mrs. Hartley gave her a sympathetic look. "Your mother means well, Miss Phoebe. She only wants what's best for the family." "Of course she does," Phoebe agreed, though she couldn't keep the hint of bitterness from her voice. At 22, she was firmly on the shelf by society's standards, while 19-year-old Caroline was the diamond of the season. The drawing room was in chaos when Phoebe entered. Her mother, Lady Victoria Ashford, was directing servants like a general commanding troops, while Caroline twirled before a mirror, admiring her golden curls. "There you are, Phoebe," Lady Victoria exclaimed. "For heaven's sake, could you not have changed into something more presentable? Never mind, there's no time now. We've received an invitation to Lady Blackwood's ball tomorrow evening, and the Duke of Westmoreland will be in attendance." Caroline clapped her hands excitedly. "I shall wear my new blue silk gown with the Belgian lace. Every gentleman will be utterly captivated." "Not every gentleman, my dear," Lady Victoria corrected. "Only one matters. The Duke is known to be extremely selective in his social interactions. He rarely attends London events." Phoebe moved toward the door. "If that's all, Mother, I'll return to my—" "No, you will not," Lady Victoria interrupted. "You will attend this ball as well, Phoebe. A respectable family must present a united front." Phoebe opened her mouth to protest, but was silenced by her mother's raised hand. "I've asked Miss Hartwell to assist you in selecting an appropriate gown. Nothing too elaborate. We wouldn't want to distract from Caroline, but presentable enough." Miss Evangeline Hartwell, the family's governess, nodded from her corner. Though technically employed to educate the Ashford daughters, her role had evolved to preparing Caroline for matrimonial success, while Phoebe, well past her schoolroom days, had become largely invisible. "Yes, Lady Ashford," Miss Hartwell replied. "Perhaps the forest green would suit Miss Phoebe. It's modest yet becoming." Phoebe suppressed a sigh. "Forest green it is, then. If you'll excuse me, I have correspondence to attend to." As she slipped from the room, she heard her mother's final instructions to Caroline. "Remember, my dear, a duchess's coronet would look splendid upon your golden curls. The Westmoreland jewels are legendary." Upstairs, Phoebe encountered Isabel Winters, Caroline's lady's maid, struggling with an armful of gowns. "Let me help you, Belle," Phoebe offered, taking several dresses. "Thank you, Miss Phoebe." Isabel smiled gratefully. Miss Caroline couldn't decide which gowns to have pressed for the upcoming events. So she selected all of them naturally. Phoebe shook her head with a wry smile. "It's an important season," Isabel replied diplomatically. "The Duke's arrival has everyone in a state." "Everyone except me," Phoebe murmured. Isabel paused. "If I may be so bold, Miss Phoebe, you shouldn't discount yourself so readily. Beauty isn't everything." "In the marriage market it certainly helps," Phoebe replied, but she squeezed Isabel's arm appreciatively. "Thank you, though." In the quiet of her bedchamber, Phoebe stood before her mirror, studying her reflection without illusions. Where Caroline was all golden curls, azure eyes and rosy cheeks, Phoebe was tall and slender, with chestnut hair that refused to hold a curl and eyes a peculiar shade of amber. Not unattractive, perhaps, but certainly not the classical beauty that London society worshipped. "It matters not," she told her reflection firmly. "I have my books, my correspondence with fellow intellectuals, my charitable work. Love and marriage were never in my future." Yet as she turned away from the mirror, a small treacherous part of her heart whispered, "But what if they could be?" Lady Blackwood's ballroom glittered with candlelight, reflecting off crystal chandeliers and ladies' jewels alike. Phoebe remained near the wall, observing the scene with detached interest, while Caroline held court among a circle of admirers. "Your sister is quite the success," remarked a voice beside her. Phoebe turned to find Edmund Blackwood, the Ashfords' loyal butler who had accompanied them to the ball, standing nearby with a tray of refreshments. "Indeed she is, Blackwood. Mother's training has paid off handsomely. And yet you seem content to remain on the periphery, Miss Phoebe." She accepted a glass of lemonade from his tray. "The periphery offers the best view, wouldn't you agree? One sees everything without being seen." A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. The crowd parted as a tall figure entered the ballroom, his commanding presence causing conversations to falter. "The Duke of Westmoreland," Blackwood murmured, before returning to his duties. Phoebe observed the newcomer with curiosity. Charles Montrose moved with the confidence of a man accustomed to power, his dark evening clothes impeccably tailored to his broad shoulders. His face was not classically handsome, too severe with sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw, but undeniably striking. His eyes, dark and penetrating, surveyed the room with cool assessment. Lady Victoria wasted no time. Within moments, she had maneuvered Caroline directly into the Duke's path. Phoebe watched as her sister curtsied deeply, her golden curls catching the light, her smile dazzling. The Duke bowed correctly, exchanged a few words, but Phoebe noted with surprise that his gaze did not linger on Caroline's beauty, as most men's did. The evening progressed predictably. Caroline danced every set, while Phoebe alternated between observing the festivities and engaging in conversation with several elderly ladies who appreciated her knowledge of literature and current events. It was during one such conversation that she became aware of a presence at her side. Looking up, she found herself staring into the dark eyes of the Duke of Westmoreland. "Miss Ashford, I believe?" His voice was deep, with a hint of northern accent. Phoebe curtsied, startled by his sudden appearance. "Your Grace, yes, I am Phoebe Ashford. Lady Harrington was just telling me of your interest in contemporary literature. You've read Mr. Dickens's latest work." "I have, Your Grace. I found his social commentary particularly incisive." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or interest. "Most young ladies prefer Mr. Dickens' romantic plots to his social observations. I am not most young ladies, Your Grace." The words slipped out before she could censor them. Instead of taking offense, the Duke's mouth curved slightly. "No, I don't believe you are, Miss Ashford." Across the room, Phoebe could see her mother watching with barely concealed horror, while Caroline's admirers glanced over in confusion. "I understand Ravenscroft Manor possesses an impressive library," the Duke continued. "I myself am a collector of rare editions. Perhaps I might call upon your family and discuss our mutual literary interests." Before Phoebe could respond, Lady Victoria materialized at her side. "Your Grace, how delightful that you've met my elder daughter, but you simply must meet Caroline properly. She's just finished playing the pianoforte, such a talented girl." The Duke's expression cooled. "Indeed, Lady Ashford. However, Miss Phoebe and I were discussing literature. Perhaps another time." He bowed to Phoebe. "Until we meet again, Miss Ashford. I look forward to continuing our conversation." As he walked away, Lady Victoria hissed, "What did you say to him, Phoebe? The Duke barely looked at Caroline all evening, and now he's speaking of calling on us because of you and your books." "We merely discussed Mr. Dickens, Mother." "Goodness gracious." Lady Victoria pressed a hand to her forehead. "Literature, of all things. Well, if his interest in books brings him to Ravenscroft, we must use the opportunity wisely. Caroline will wear her pink muslin tomorrow. It makes her look positively angelic." Later that night, as Isabel helped Phoebe undress, the lady's maid commented, "The Duke seemed most attentive to you this evening, Miss Phoebe." "He was merely being polite to a wallflower," Phoebe replied, though she couldn't help remembering the intensity of his dark gaze. "I don't think so, miss. Mr. Blackwood says his Grace is known for his discernment. He doesn't waste time on empty pleasantries." Phoebe shook her head. "Don't be fanciful, Belle. By this time tomorrow, the Duke will have forgotten my existence. Men like Charles Montrose marry women like Caroline. Beautiful, accomplished, perfect for a duchess. But as she lay in bed that night, Phoebe found herself recalling the brief spark of connection she'd felt when discussing literature with the Duke. For a moment, just a moment, she had been seen, not as Caroline's plain elder sister, but as herself. "Foolish thoughts," she whispered into the darkness. "Morning will bring reality back into focus." She couldn't have known how wrong she was. True to his word, the Duke of Westmoreland called at Ravenscroft Manor the following afternoon. The household was thrown into a frenzy of preparation at the first sight of his elegant carriage coming up the drive. "He's here. Goodness, he's early," Lady Victoria exclaimed, frantically adjusting Caroline's golden curls. "Phoebe, for heaven's sake, at least pinch your cheeks for some colour." Phoebe ignored the instruction, remaining seated with her embroidery, while the butler, Blackwood, announced their distinguished visitor. "His Grace the Duke of Westmoreland," Blackwood intoned with perfect gravity, though Phoebe caught the slight twinkle in his eye as he glanced her way. Charles Montrose entered the drawing-room with the same commanding presence he had displayed at the ball. Today, his tall frame was clothed in a perfectly tailored riding coat of bottle green, his cravat impeccably tied. "Lady Ashford, Miss Caroline, Miss Phoebe," he greeted each with a bow, though Phoebe couldn't help noticing that his gaze lingered on her longer than propriety dictated. "Your Grace, what an unexpected pleasure," Lady Victoria simpered. Caroline was just about to practice her harp. "Perhaps you would care to listen." The Duke smiled politely. "Perhaps later, Lady Ashford. Actually, I've come to inquire whether Miss Phoebe might show me the library she spoke of. I understand the Ashford collection contains some noteworthy first editions." A stunned silence fell over the room. Caroline's porcelain face registered shock, while Lady Victoria looked as though she might faint. "The library," Lady Victoria repeated weakly. "Yes, if it wouldn't be an imposition." The Duke's expression remained impassive, but Phoebe detected a hint of amusement in his dark eyes. "Of course, Your Grace." Phoebe rose, setting aside her embroidery. "I would be happy to show you our modest collection." "Excellent." He offered his arm. "Lead the way, Miss Ashford." As they left the drawing-room, Phoebe could practically feel her mother's bewildered gaze burning into her back. In the corridor, she couldn't suppress a small smile. "You've caused quite a stir, Your Grace," she observed quietly. "Have I?" He raised an eyebrow. "I merely expressed interest in literature, something you and I discussed yesterday. In this household, expressing interest in anything related to me rather than my sister is tantamount to announcing the sky is falling." His mouth quirked. "How refreshingly honest you are, Miss Ashford. Most young ladies would pretend false modesty." They reached the library, a wood-panelled sanctuary filled with the comforting scent of leather and paper. Phoebe felt herself relax as the door closed behind them, leaving them in relative privacy, though she knew Miss Hartwell would soon manufacture a reason to check on them, as propriety demanded. "Now," she said, turning to face the Duke, "what is your true purpose in calling today, Your Grace? I suspect it wasn't merely to see our modest collection of first editions." Charles Montrose studied her for a moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "Direct as well as honest, refreshing qualities, Miss Ashford." He moved to examine the bookshelves, running his fingertips lightly along the spines. "I meant what I said about our mutual literary interests, but you're right, I had another purpose." Phoebe waited, oddly breathless. "I find myself intrigued by you, Miss Ashford. You're unlike any young woman I've encountered in society." "You mean I lack beauty and accomplishments?" The words were out before she could stop them. The Duke turned to her, his expression suddenly stern. "I mean you possess intelligence and authenticity, rare qualities indeed. Beauty is common, Miss Ashford. Genuine character is not." Phoebe felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Forgive me, Your Grace. I'm unaccustomed to compliments. That is society's failing, not yours." He selected a volume from the shelf. "Ah, Shelley, another favorite of mine." They spent the next hour discussing poetry, philosophy, and literature. Phoebe found herself engrossed in their conversation, momentarily forgetting the vast social gulf between them. The Duke was erudite, with trenchant observations and a dry wit that made her laugh aloud several times. As predicted, Miss Hartwell eventually appeared with tea, her curious gaze moving between them as she arranged the service. "Your mother wonders if you and His Grace would care to join them in the drawing-room, Miss Phoebe," she said pointedly. "Please inform Lady Ashford that Miss Phoebe has been an excellent guide to your library," the Duke replied smoothly. "We shall join the company shortly." After Miss Hartwell departed, Charles sighed. "And so propriety reasserts itself. A pity. I was enjoying our conversation." "As was I," Phoebe admitted. "It's rare to find someone who appreciates literature as more than mere entertainment." "Indeed." He hesitated, then said, "Miss Ashford, would you permit me to call on you again? Perhaps we might continue our discussion." Phoebe's heart stuttered. "I would like that, Your Grace. Though I must warn you, my mother will be thoroughly confused by your attention." A genuine smile transformed his austere features. "Let her be confused, then. I find I care little for society's expectations these days." When they returned to the drawing room, Caroline was performing a sentimental ballad on the harp, her golden head bent artfully over the strings. She looked up with a dazzling smile as they entered. "Your Grace, I hope you found our library satisfactory," Lady Victoria said, gesturing for them to be seated. "Caroline has been practicing this piece especially, knowing of your fondness for music." "Most thoughtful," the Duke replied politely, though his gaze kept returning to Phoebe. "Your library is indeed a treasure, Lady Ashford. Miss Phoebe's knowledge of its contents is impressive." Lady Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, well, Phoebe has always been our scholarly daughter. Caroline, darling, perhaps the Italian aria next?" The Duke rose before Caroline could begin. "Forgive me, but I have another engagement this afternoon. Lady Ashford, Miss Caroline, Miss Phoebe, thank you for your hospitality." As Blackwood showed him out, the Duke paused beside Phoebe. "Until next time, Miss Ashford," he murmured, his voice pitched for her ears alone. The moment the front door closed, Lady Victoria rounded on Phoebe. "What in heaven's name did you say to him? 2 hours in the library discussing books of all things. Caroline barely had a chance to showcase her accomplishments." "I answered his questions about literature, Mother. Nothing more." Caroline approached, her expression puzzled rather than angry. "It's strange, isn't it? Every other gentleman can't take their eyes off me, yet the Duke hardly seemed to notice." "Perhaps he's short-sighted," Lady Victoria suggested desperately. "Or possibly he's using Phoebe to learn more about you, Caroline. Yes, that must be it. A strategy to distinguish himself from your other suitors." Phoebe slipped away during this rationalization, seeking refuge in the garden. The afternoon sunshine was warm on her face as she wandered among the rose bushes, still processing what had happened. "Miss Phoebe." She turned to find Blackwood approaching along the gravel path. "Yes, Blackwood." "A message from His Grace." He handed her a small package. "He asked that it be delivered directly to you." Curious, Phoebe unwrapped the parcel to find a leather-bound volume of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's sonnets. A note was tucked inside. "Miss Ashford, our discussion of romantic poetry reminded me of this volume. Perhaps you might find it of interest. I look forward to hearing your thoughts when next we meet. Yours sincerely, Westmoreland." "Did His Grace say anything else, Blackwood?" Phoebe asked, carefully rewrapping the book. "Only that he found today's conversation most stimulating, miss." The butler's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held understanding. "If I may be so bold, Miss Phoebe, His Grace does not have a reputation for frivolous attentions." "Thank you, Blackwood." Phoebe clutched the book to her chest. "Please don't mention this to my mother just yet." "As you wish, miss." That evening, as Isabel helped her prepare for bed, the lady's maid commented, "The household is in quite a state, Miss Phoebe. Lady Ashford can't understand why the Duke spent so much time with you today." "Neither can I, Belle," Phoebe confessed, extracting the book of sonnets from its hiding place beneath her pillow. "What could a man like Charles Montrose possibly see in me?" Isabel smiled as she brushed Phoebe's chestnut hair. "Perhaps he sees what the rest of us do, miss, a woman of intelligence and character." "Those qualities rarely inspire romantic interest," Phoebe replied wryly. "You misjudge yourself, Miss Phoebe," Isabel said firmly, "and perhaps you misjudge His Grace as well." Later, reading by candlelight, Phoebe found a passage marked in the book of sonnets. "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach." Her fingers traced the words, wondering at their significance. Could the Duke truly be interested in her? The possibility seemed too fantastical to contemplate. The following weeks stretched into months as winter gave way to early spring. Charles continued his attentions to Phoebe, their intellectual connection deepening with each meeting. They discovered shared interests beyond literature, a passion for educational reform, a concern for the working conditions in northern factories, a love of classical music that led to evenings at the opera where Charles was seen gazing at Phoebe rather than the stage. By April, when the gardens of Ravenscroft Manor burst into bloom, their attachment was impossible for London society to ignore. The Duke called at the Ashford home 3 times each week, each time seeking Phoebe's company. They walked in the garden, discussed books in the library, and even rode together in the park, always properly chaperoned, but clearly engrossed in each other's company. Lady Victoria vacillated between confusion and calculation. "Perhaps we should encourage this strange friendship," she told her husband, Sir William Ashford, one evening. "If Phoebe becomes the Duke's confidant, she might influence him toward Caroline." Sir William, a gentle man who spent most of his time managing the family estates, looked doubtful. "Victoria, my dear, I believe the Duke's interest in our Phoebe may be more than friendship." "Nonsense!" Lady Victoria exclaimed. "He's a Duke. Dukes marry beautiful, accomplished girls like Caroline, not bluestockings like Phoebe." Sir William sighed. "Our elder daughter has many fine qualities, my dear. Perhaps the Duke sees them more clearly than we have." At the Wentworth Ball in mid-April, Phoebe wore a new gown of deep sapphire blue, commissioned by her father without Lady Victoria's knowledge. The colour brightened her amber eyes and complemented her chestnut hair, which Isabel had arranged in a more becoming style than her usual severe knot. "Miss Phoebe, you look transformed," Miss Hartwell exclaimed when she entered the drawing-room. Caroline clapped her hands in delight. "Oh, Phoebe, you look lovely. Doesn't she, Mother?" Lady Victoria studied her elder daughter with surprise. Indeed, quite presentable. The Duke arrived to escort their carriage, his eyes widening appreciatively at the sight of Phoebe. "Miss Ashford, you are radiant tonight," he said, pressing her gloved hand. At the ball, scandal erupted when the Duke asked Phoebe for 2 dances, the waltz and the supper dance, both coveted slots that indicated serious interest. As they circled the floor together, Phoebe was acutely aware of the stares and whispers. "Everyone is watching us," she murmured. "Let them watch," Charles replied, his hand warm at her waist. "I'm only concerned with your opinion, not theirs. They think you've lost your mind, preferring me to Caroline." His grip tightened slightly. "I haven't lost my mind, Phoebe. On the contrary, I believe I've finally found it, and my heart as well." Phoebe stumbled slightly at his words, but Charles steadied her smoothly. "Careful," he murmured, a smile in his voice. "We wouldn't want to give the gossips more to discuss." During the supper dance, they were approached by Lady Cordelia Westwood, a beautiful widow known for her sharp tongue and determined pursuit of titled gentlemen. "Your Grace," she purred, ignoring Phoebe completely. "How unexpected to see you participating so enthusiastically in the season's festivities. London has missed you these past years." "Lady Westwood," Charles nodded coolly, "Miss Ashford and I were just discussing the merits of the Romantic poets versus their predecessors." Lady Cordelia's perfect features arranged themselves into a sympathetic smile. "How kind of you to indulge Miss Ashford's intellectual interests. Such a refreshing change from the usual social niceties, isn't it? Almost charitable." Phoebe felt herself flush with humiliation at the implied insult. But before she could respond, Charles's voice cut through the air like ice. "There is nothing charitable about enjoying the company of an intelligent, genuine woman, Lady Westwood. Now, if you'll excuse us, our dance awaits." As they moved away, Phoebe whispered, "You shouldn't have antagonized her. Lady Westwood is influential in society circles." "I care nothing for her influence," Charles replied. "And I won't allow anyone to insult you, Phoebe, not even the Queen herself." Later that evening, as Phoebe sought a moment's respite on a secluded balcony, she overheard Lady Cordelia speaking to a group of matrons. "It's obvious what the Duke is doing," she said, her voice carrying clearly. "Everyone knows about his first wife's mental instability. He's seeking a sensible, plain wife this time, one who won't embarrass him with flights of fancy or attract other men's attention. Poor Miss Ashford is merely convenient, bookish, forgettable, and unlikely to receive other offers." Phoebe froze, the cruel words cutting deeper than she wanted to admit. Was that truly how Charles saw her? A safe, sensible alternative to a beautiful but potentially troublesome wife? She was so lost in her painful thoughts that she didn't hear the balcony door open behind her. "Phoebe," Charles's voice startled her. "Are you unwell? You disappeared so suddenly." She turned to face him, struggling to maintain her composure. "Your Grace, Charles," he corrected gently. "When we're alone, I wish you would call me Charles." "I don't think that would be wise," she replied stiffly. "In fact, I think perhaps your attention to me has been misguided." His brow furrowed. "What are you saying?" "I've overheard certain speculations about your intentions, that you seek a wife who is the opposite of your first, someone plain, sensible, unlikely to cause scandal or attract admirers." Charles's expression darkened. "Lady Westwood, I presume. Her jealousy makes her vicious." "Is it untrue, then?" Phoebe challenged, her hurt making her bold. "Do you deny that I am a stark contrast to the beautiful, vivacious women most men pursue? I deny that my interest in you is based on anything but genuine admiration and growing affection," he replied, stepping closer. "Phoebe, surely you know by now how I regard you. I know that a duke is expected to marry a woman like my sister, beautiful, accomplished, bred to be an ornament to society. I know that your interest in me has caused speculation and confusion. And I know that I cannot bear to be chosen merely because I am safe and sensible." Charles took her hands in his dark eyes intense. "Listen to me, Phoebe Ashford. I have spent my life surrounded by beautiful, empty-headed women who care only for titles and wealth. My first marriage was a disaster precisely because I chose based on beauty and social expectations rather than character and compatibility." His voice softened. "From our first conversation, I recognized in you something rare and precious. A mind that challenges me, a spirit that doesn't bend to convention, a heart that remains genuine despite society's pressures. Your beauty, and yes, you are beautiful, though in a less conventional way than your sister, grows more apparent to me each time we meet." Phoebe trembled at the sincerity in his voice. "I fear I will disappoint you," she whispered. "I am not Duchess material, Charles." "You are exactly what I want in a Duchess," he replied. "Someone who will be my partner, not merely my ornament. Someone with whom I can share my thoughts, my concerns, my life." He raised her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her fingers. "I know it soon, and I don't wish to rush you, but please, Phoebe, don't let Lady Westwood's spite or society's expectations come between us." The door to the balcony opened suddenly, revealing Lady Victoria with Caroline in tow. "There you are, Phoebe. What in heaven's name are you doing alone with the Duke? Come inside at once, it's most improper." Charles released Phoebe's hands reluctantly. "Lady Ashford, the fault is entirely mine. I wished for a moment of private conversation with Miss Ashford." "Private conversation?" Lady Victoria looked scandalized. "Your Grace, while we are honored by your attention to our family, I must insist on propriety. If you wish to speak with Phoebe, it must be in the presence of a chaperone." "Of course, Lady Ashford," Charles replied smoothly. "I was just telling Miss Phoebe how much I look forward to your family's garden party next week. I understand you've invited much of London society." "Indeed, Your Grace." Lady Victoria's expression softened at the mention of her upcoming social triumph. "It will be the event of the season. Caroline will perform several pieces on the harp." "Delightful," Charles murmured, his eyes still on Phoebe. "Until then, Miss Ashford." As they departed the ball, Phoebe remained silent, her mind whirling with confusion. Charles's words had touched her deeply, yet doubt still lingered. Could a man of his position, his wealth, his status truly care for someone like her? Or was she merely a novelty, an amusement, until he inevitably turned his attention to a more suitable match? "You're very quiet, dear," Sir William remarked as their carriage rolled through London's darkened streets. "Merely tired, father," Phoebe replied, though in truth she was more awake than she had ever been, her heart and mind alive with possibilities she had never dared to contemplate before. The following morning, when the scandalous article arrived, Sir William took it particularly hard. "This is outrageous," he had exclaimed, his face flushing with anger, "to malign the Duke's character and insult my daughter in such a manner." The episode had so affected him that the physician was called, recommending rest and seclusion from visitors to prevent further agitation. This explained why, when the Duke arrived later that day, Lady Victoria informed him that Sir William was not receiving visitors. The Ashford garden party was blessed with perfect May weather, sunshine warming the air without excessive heat, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of newly bloomed roses across the manicured lawns of Ravenscroft Manor. Footmen in livery circulated with champagne and delicacies, while a string quartet played beneath a white canopy. Phoebe observed the festivities from the terrace, dressed in a gown of soft lavender that Isabel had helped her select. Since the ball, she had found herself paying more attention to her appearance, though she told herself it was merely proper respect for her family's social standing. "You look thoughtful, Miss Phoebe," Miss Hartwell commented, joining her at the stone balustrade. "Are you not enjoying your mother's triumph?" "I'm enjoying the sunshine and music," Phoebe replied diplomatically. "Mother has outdone herself with the arrangements." Miss Hartwell studied her with perceptive eyes. "And perhaps awaiting a certain guest?" Phoebe's cheeks warmed. "Miss Hartwell, surely you don't credit the ridiculous gossip about the Duke and me?" "I credit what I observe, Miss Phoebe. His Grace looks at you as a man looks at something precious and rare." Before Phoebe could respond, Blackwood appeared on the terrace. "Miss Phoebe, His Grace the Duke of Westmoreland has arrived and is asking for you specifically." Phoebe's heart quickened as she descended to the garden. Charles stood near the rose garden, tall and distinguished in a perfectly tailored coat of deep blue. He turned at her approach, his austere features softening. "Miss Ashford," he bowed over her hand. "You look lovely today." "Your Grace," she curtsied, acutely aware of the many eyes observing them. "Thank you for attending our modest gathering." "I would not have missed it," he replied, offering his arm. "Would you walk with me? Your mother has already given permission." As they strolled among the roses, properly visible to the other guests, but with enough privacy for conversation, Charles seemed unusually tense. "Is something troubling you?" Phoebe asked. He sighed. "I received a concerning letter this morning. It seems Lady Westwood has been spreading rumors about my first marriage." Phoebe frowned. "What sort of rumors?" "Insinuations that Elizabeth's death was not the tragic accident it appeared to be." His jaw tightened. "That I was somehow responsible." "That's outrageous!" Phoebe exclaimed. "Surely no one would believe such malicious nonsense." "You'd be surprised what society will believe when presented as scandalous gossip," Charles replied grimly. "Especially about someone like me who has never courted popularity." Phoebe touched his arm gently. "Will you tell me what really happened? Not that I doubt you, but you deserve to know the truth." Charles led her to a stone bench partially screened by climbing roses. "Elizabeth was beautiful, charming, the toast of society, and deeply unhappy in our marriage." He gazed into the distance, his expression pained. "We were ill-suited from the beginning. I married her because it was expected. She was the daughter of a marquess, perfect duchess material by society's standards, but we had nothing in common beyond our social positions." "I'm sorry," Phoebe murmured. "Elizabeth found consolation in other companionship. I was willing to turn a blind eye to live separate lives while maintaining appearances, but she became reckless, taking ever greater risks with her reputation." He looked down at his hands. "That final night, she had been drinking heavily at a house party. Against advice, she insisted on riding out alone. Her horse returned without her. They found her body the next morning at the base of a cliff." Phoebe's hand flew to her mouth. How terrible. There were whispers even then, that we had quarreled, that I had driven her to desperation. In truth, we had barely spoken in weeks. His voice roughened. "I did fail her, Phoebe, but not in the way they suggest. I failed her by entering a marriage without love, by not recognizing her unhappiness until it was too late." Phoebe reached for his hand, propriety forgotten. "You cannot blame yourself for her choices, Charles." "Perhaps not, but I vowed never again to marry for convenience or expectation." His dark eyes held hers intently. "Which brings me to what I wished to discuss with you today." Phoebe's heart seemed to stop. "Yes?" "Miss Ashford," Lady Victoria's voice shattered the moment. "Your sister is about to perform. Your Grace, you simply must hear Caroline play. She has the touch of an angel." Charles rose smoothly, maintaining his composure despite the interruption. "Of course, Lady Ashford. We shall continue our conversation later, Miss Phoebe." As they rejoined the party, Phoebe noticed Lady Cordelia Westwood among the guests, her beautiful face marred by a calculating expression as she watched Charles. Beside her stood a thin gentleman, with sharp features whom Phoebe recognized as Mr. Alistair Finch, a notorious gossip columnist for one of London's society papers. Caroline's performance was indeed beautiful, her golden curls catching the sunlight as she bent gracefully over the harp. The assembled guests applauded enthusiastically, and Lady Victoria beamed with pride. "Isn't she extraordinary, Your Grace?" Lady Victoria prompted, practically pushing Charles toward Caroline. "Most accomplished," he replied politely, before turning to seek Phoebe again. But Lady Cordelia intercepted him, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Charles, darling, it's been an age since we've waltzed together. Surely you remember Vienna?" Phoebe watched their interaction, a knot forming in her stomach. Charles extricated himself politely but firmly from Lady Cordelia's grasp, but the damage was done. The gossips had noted the familiar way she addressed him, the implication of a shared past. Isabel appeared at Phoebe's side. "Miss Phoebe, your father is asking for you. He's in the library with a gentleman who wishes to meet you, a professor from Oxford, who shares your interest in literature." Grateful for the excuse to escape, Phoebe slipped away from the garden party. In the quiet of the library, her father was deep in conversation with a scholarly-looking gentleman. Phoebe," Sir William smiled warmly. "Allow me to introduce Professor James Harrison. He's written that treatise on romantic poetry you admired so much." The afternoon passed pleasantly in literary discussion, but Phoebe's mind kept returning to Charles and their interrupted conversation. What had he wanted to tell her? By the time she returned to the garden, many guests had departed, including, she learned with disappointment, the Duke. "He left a message for you, miss," Blackwood informed her discreetly, handing her a folded note. "And may I say he seemed most displeased to be departing without speaking to you again." Phoebe waited until she was alone to read the message. "My dear Phoebe, I regret that our conversation was interrupted. There is much more I wish to say to you. Indeed, a question of the utmost importance I wish to ask. Would you do me the honor of riding with me tomorrow morning? I shall call for you at 10 if that is convenient. Yours, Charles." Phoebe pressed the note to her heart, hope and anxiety warring within her. Could he truly be contemplating? But no, it seemed too fantastical to even consider. That evening, as the family dined together, Lady Victoria was in high spirits. "A most successful afternoon. Did you notice how the Countess of Harrington complimented our arrangements? And Caroline, darling, everyone adored your performance." "Thank you, Mother," Caroline replied, though her smile seemed subdued. "I only wish the Duke had stayed longer," Lady Victoria continued. "Such a pity he was called away on business." Phoebe kept her eyes on her plate, not trusting herself to comment. "Actually, Mother," Caroline said suddenly, "I wish to speak with you about the Duke." Lady Victoria beamed. "Yes, dear. Did he say something to you during your performance?" "No, but I've been observing him these past weeks." Caroline glanced at Phoebe. "I believe his interest lies with Phoebe, not with me." A stunned silence fell over the table. Lady Victoria's face froze in an expression of disbelief. "Don't be absurd, Caroline. The Duke is merely being courteous to your sister." "He sought her out immediately upon arrival today," Caroline persisted. "They conversed privately in the rose garden. He watches her constantly when we're in company together. Mother, surely you've noticed." "Nonsense." Lady Victoria's voice rose shrilly. "What possible interest could the Duke have in Phoebe when you are present? You with your beauty, your accomplishments." "Victoria," Sir William interrupted firmly, "our daughter is speaking. Let her finish." Caroline reached across the table to take Phoebe's hand. "I'm not upset, Phoebe, truly. I have many admirers, too many sometimes. But the Duke, the way he looks at you is different, and I think you care for him too." Phoebe squeezed her sister's hand, touched by her unexpected support. "Caroline, This is preposterous," Lady Victoria exclaimed. "Sir William, surely you don't entertain this fantasy. A duke marrying our Phoebe." Sir William regarded his wife steadily. "And why not? Our elder daughter is intelligent, well-read, kind-hearted, qualities any sensible man would value in a wife, title or no. But she's not—" Lady Victoria bit off her words. "Not what, Mother?" Phoebe asked quietly. "Not beautiful like Caroline? Not accomplished in the ways society values? Not the daughter you've groomed to make a brilliant match?" "I merely meant that you've never shown interest in marriage before," Lady Victoria amended weakly. So your books, your charitable work, those have always been your priorities. Perhaps because I never imagined anyone would choose me, Phoebe replied, surprising herself with her candor. But Charles, the Duke, sees me differently than others do. Lady Victoria's eyes widened at Phoebe's use of the Duke's Christian name. Before she could respond, Blackwood entered the dining room. "Excuse me, Sir William, but this just arrived by special messenger." He presented a letter on a silver salver. The sender indicated it was most urgent. Sir William broke the seal and read the contents, his expression darkening. "Good gracious. It's from Lord Harrington. There's been a most disturbing article published in tomorrow's edition of the Society Chronicle. He received an advance copy and thought we should be warned." "What does it say, Father?" Caroline asked anxiously. Sir William hesitated, glancing at Phoebe. It concerns the Duke of Westmoreland and raises questions about his first wife's death. And it also mentions an apparent understanding between the Duke and our Phoebe." Lady Victoria snatched the letter. "Let me see. Oh, this is dreadful. Listen to this. Sources close to the late Duchess reveal that her tragic accident may have been the result of desperate unhappiness in her marriage. Now society observers note with concern that the Duke appears to be pursuing another unconventional match with the decidedly unexceptional elder daughter of Sir William Ashford." "Unexceptional!" Sir William exploded. "How dare they speak of my daughter in such terms?" Phoebe sat frozen, her earlier happiness evaporating like morning dew. "Who wrote this vile piece?" "It's signed a concerned observer, but the style is unmistakably Alastair Finch's," Sir William replied grimly. "And I'd wager a year's income that Lady Cordelia Westwood provided the sources close to the late Duchess. This will ruin us socially," Lady Victoria moaned, "to be connected with such scandal." "It will do nothing of the sort," Sir William said firmly. "We've done nothing wrong, nor has the Duke. These are malicious rumour-mongings, nothing more." "But what if there's truth to it?" Lady Victoria whispered. "What if the Duke really did have something to do with his wife's death, and now he's targeting our innocent Phoebe?" "Mother!" Caroline exclaimed, shocked. "I won't hear another word of such nonsense," Sir William declared. "The Duke is a man of honour, and I won't have his character assassinated in this house." Phoebe rose from the table, her appetite gone. "If you'll excuse me, I need some air." In the garden, the spring evening was cool and fragrant with blossoms. Phoebe paced the gravel paths, her mind in turmoil. She believed Charles's account of his wife's death implicitly, but the damage of the article would be severe. Would he withdraw from society again, retreat to his northern estates? Would his tentative courtship of her, if that's what it was, be another casualty of Lady Cordelia's spite? A rustle from the shrubbery startled her. "Who's there?" Isabel stepped out, looking apologetic. "Forgive me, Miss Phoebe. I was taking a shortcut back from the village and saw you out here alone. Is everything all right?" Phoebe's composure cracked. "No, Belle, nothing is all right. There's to be a horrible article in tomorrow's paper suggesting the Duke was responsible for his first wife's death and questioning his interest in me." "Oh, miss," Isabel's eyes widened, "that's dreadful. Who would write such things?" "Lady Cordelia Westwood, I suspect, through her puppet, Mr. Finch." Phoebe sank onto a stone bench. "She wants the Duke for herself, and she'll destroy anyone who stands in her way." Isabel sat beside her, propriety forgotten in the face of Phoebe's distress. "Do you love him, Miss Phoebe?" The directness of the question took Phoebe by surprise. I hardly know him, Belle, but when we're together I feel seen, valued, as if the person I truly am is precisely the person he wants to know." "That sounds like the beginning of love to me," Isabel said softly. "It doesn't matter now," Phoebe replied bitterly. "After this scandal he'll likely withdraw from society again, and even if he doesn't, my mother will never allow me to see him." "If I may be so bold, miss, you're a grown woman of 22. Perhaps it's time to decide for yourself what and whom you want." The next morning dawned grey and drizzly, matching Phoebe's mood. She dressed simply, expecting to spend the day sequestered at home while the scandal broke across London society. To her surprise, Blackwood informed her that the Duke's carriage had arrived as planned. "His Grace is waiting in the morning room, Miss Phoebe. He seems determined." Heart pounding, Phoebe found Charles pacing before the fireplace, his expression grim but resolute. He turned at her entrance, his dark eyes softening. "Phoebe, thank you for seeing me." "Charles, have you seen today's Society Chronicle? There's a terrible article—" "I've seen it," he interrupted. "That's partly why I'm here. I refuse to let Lady Cordelia's spite dictate my actions or feelings." He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "The other reason I'm here is to finish our conversation from yesterday. Phoebe, these past weeks have shown me what I've been missing in my life. Genuine connection, intellectual companionship, the joy of being with someone who values me for myself, not my title or fortune." Phoebe's breath caught. "Charles, The door burst open, revealing Lady Victoria in a state of high agitation. "Your Grace, how unexpected. I'm afraid our household is in some disarray this morning. Perhaps you could call again tomorrow?" "Mother, please," Phoebe began, but Charles spoke over her. "Lady Ashford, I understand your concern given the unfortunate publication this morning. That is precisely why I must speak with Sir William, and with Miss Phoebe, without delay." "Sir William is not receiving visitors," Lady Victoria said desperately. "He's most upset about the article's implications regarding our family." "Then I shall speak plainly to you, madam." Charles drew himself up to his full height, his aristocratic bearing unmistakable. "I have come to request your daughter's hand in marriage." Lady Victoria swayed, clutching the doorframe for support. "Marriage? But Caroline is engaged in correspondence lessons this morning." "Not Caroline, Lady Ashford. I wish to marry Phoebe." The silence that followed was profound. Phoebe felt as though the world had stopped spinning, her future hanging in the balance of this extraordinary moment. "This is most irregular," Lady Victoria stammered. "In light of this morning's publication, surely you understand that any connection between our families would be complicated." "I understand that malicious gossip should never stand in the way of genuine affection," Charles replied firmly. "I care deeply for your daughter, Lady Ashford. I believe she returns my regard. With your blessing or without it, I intend to make her my Duchess." Phoebe found her voice at last. "Charles, are you certain the scandal—" "Scandals fade, Phoebe. What I feel for you will not." He turned to face her fully, his expression more vulnerable than she had ever seen it. "If you'll have me, that is." Before Phoebe could respond, Sir William entered the room, his face grave. "Your Grace, I see you've braved the storm to call on us this morning." "Sir William." Charles bowed slightly. "I've just informed Lady Ashford of my wish to marry your daughter. I now formally request your blessing." Sir William's expression softened. "You have it, Your Grace, if Phoebe wishes to accept you. But I must ask, are you prepared for the social consequences? This article, vicious though it is, will cause talk." "Let them talk," Charles replied. "I've lived too long concerned with appearances and society's expectations. What matters to me now is Phoebe's happiness and my own." All eyes turned to Phoebe, who stood trembling with emotion. "Charles, this is so unexpected. Are you truly willing to face scandal, gossip, perhaps even ostracism from society for my sake?" "For our sake," he corrected gently. "And yes, without hesitation." A commotion in the hallway interrupted the moment. Blackwood appeared, looking uncharacteristically flustered. "Forgive the intrusion, Sir William, but Lady Cordelia Westwood is demanding entrance. She claims it's a matter of utmost urgency." Sir William frowned. "The audacity after what she's done?" "Let her in," Charles said unexpectedly. "I have a few words for Lady Westwood myself." Lady Cordelia swept into the morning room, magnificently attired in a morning dress of emerald silk. Her beautiful face registered shock at finding Charles already present. "Your Grace, I came immediately when I saw that dreadful article. Such malicious falsehoods. I wanted to assure you of my support in this difficult time." Charles regarded her coldly. "How curious, Lady Westwood, considering you were seen in close conversation with Mr. Finch at yesterday's garden party, immediately after which this dreadful article was written." Lady Cordelia's composure slipped momentarily before she recovered. "A coincidence, surely. Mr. Finch approaches many people for society gossip." "Indeed? Then you deny providing him with information about my first wife?" "Of course I deny it." Lady Cordelia's voice rose indignantly. "Elizabeth was my dear friend. I would never dishonor her memory." "Then perhaps you can explain this." Charles produced a letter from his coat pocket. "A message from Mr. Finch to you, mistakenly delivered to my secretary this morning, thanking you for your invaluable insights regarding my first marriage and my current infatuation with the plain Ashford girl." Lady Cordelia blanched. That's a forgery. Is it? Shall we summon Mr. Finch to verify his handwriting?" Charles's voice was dangerously quiet. "Or perhaps you'd prefer I speak with Lord Westwood about your activities. I understand he's most concerned about the family's reputation since your late husband's passing." "You wouldn't dare," Lady Cordelia whispered. "I would, if you continue to spread malicious lies about me or about Miss Ashford." Charles's expression was implacable. "Consider carefully, Lady Westwood. Your position in society is precarious enough without making an enemy of me." Lady Cordelia's beautiful face contorted with fury. "You're making a grave mistake, Charles. This nobody," she gestured dismissively at Phoebe, "will never be accepted as the Duchess of Westmoreland. You'll be laughingstocks, the Duke who married a plain, penniless bluestocking over the most beautiful women in England." Phoebe flinched at the cruel words, but Charles merely smiled, a cold, aristocratic smile that reminded everyone present of his power and position. "You mistake me, Lady Westwood, if you think I care for society's acceptance, and you mistake Miss Ashford entirely if you think her worth lies in conventional beauty or a large dowry." He moved to stand beside Phoebe, taking her hand in his. "I choose her for her intelligence, her character, her genuine heart, qualities you might wish to cultivate yourself." Lady Victoria, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, suddenly straightened her shoulders. "Lady Westwood, I believe it's time for you to leave. My daughter's engagement to the Duke is a cause for celebration, not your bitter recriminations." Lady Cordelia stared at her in disbelief. "You support this farce of a match? Your plain, awkward daughter stealing a duke from your beautiful one?" "My daughter," Lady Victoria replied with unexpected dignity, "has captured the heart of one of England's finest gentlemen through her own merits. I would be a poor mother indeed if I failed to recognize her good fortune, or his." Lady Cordelia looked from face to face, finding no allies. "You'll regret this, all of you," she hissed, before sweeping from the room. In the silence that followed her departure, Charles turned to Phoebe. "I believe, Miss Ashford, that you have not yet answered my question." Phoebe looked up into his dark eyes, seeing in them all the promise of a future she had never dared to imagine. "If you're absolutely certain, Charles, then yes, with all my heart." His face transformed with a smile of such joy that even Lady Victoria was moved. "Then, with your parents' blessing, may I formally announce our engagement?" Sir William clasped Charles's hand warmly. "Nothing would give me greater pleasure, Your Grace." "And I," Lady Victoria added, somewhat tearfully, "shall begin planning the most magnificent wedding London has seen this decade. My daughter shall become a duchess in style." As plans and congratulations flowed around them, Charles drew Phoebe slightly apart. "Are you happy, my love? Truly?" Phoebe's heart overflowed with emotion. "Happier than I ever thought possible. But Charles, what about the scandal, the gossip?" "We shall weather it together," he replied, raising her hand to his lips. "And in time, they will see what I already know, that you will be the most extraordinary Duchess Westmoreland has ever had." The engagement was officially announced in the Times, and a steady stream of congratulatory notes and visitors followed. If some were motivated more by curiosity than genuine goodwill, Phoebe faced them with newfound confidence, secure in Charles's devotion and her family's support. As for Lady Cordelia, she had departed for Paris shortly after the confrontation at Ravenscroft Manor, supposedly for health reasons, though society whispered that her hasty exit had more to do with the Duke's threat to speak with her late husband's family. The scandal predicted by Lady Cordelia had largely failed to materialize. The initial gossip following the newspaper article had been swiftly countered by Charles's solicitors, who threatened legal action against the Society Chronicle unless a retraction was published. Faced with the Duke's formidable influence, the paper had quickly complied, printing an apology and dismissing Alistair Finch. Sir William had proved particularly steadfast, proudly escorting his elder daughter to social functions and beaming with undisguised pleasure whenever Charles joined them. "I always knew my Phoebe was extraordinary," he told anyone who would listen. "It merely took an extraordinary man to recognize it." The weeks following the engagement announcement passed in a whirlwind of preparations, social calls, and adjusted expectations. Lady Victoria, having recovered from her initial shock, threw herself into wedding plans with characteristic enthusiasm, while Caroline proved to be Phoebe's most steadfast supporter, deflecting curious questions and cruel remarks with calm dignity. "You seem different lately, sister," Phoebe remarked one afternoon as they sorted through fabric samples in the drawing room. "More serene, somehow." Caroline smiled, a genuine smile rather than her practiced social one. "Perhaps I am. Watching you with the Duke, with Charles, has been illuminating. You've found something real, Phoebe, something beyond pretty manners and social expectations." "You'll find it too," Phoebe assured her, squeezing her sister's hand. "Someone who sees past your beauty to the person beneath." "I hope so," Caroline replied thoughtfully, "though I confess I'm in no hurry now. Mother's obsession with making a brilliant match seems rather hollow after seeing what true attachment looks like." Lady Victoria bustled in with Miss Hartwell, carrying more fabric swatches. "Phoebe, darling, the modiste suggests ivory satin for the wedding gown, but I think Duchess white would be more traditional. What do you think?" Phoebe exchanged an amused glance with Caroline. Their mother's rapid transition from dismay to enthusiastic support still amazed them both. "Either would be lovely, Mother. I trust your judgment." Yes. The white, I think. With Brussels lace for the veil, a gift from the Duke, naturally." Lady Victoria made a note in her ledger. "Miss Hartwell, please write to Lady Pembroke accepting her invitation for tea next Tuesday. Now that the initial shock has faded, everyone is clamouring to meet the future Duchess of Westmoreland." "Yes, Lady Ashford." Miss Hartwell smiled warmly at Phoebe. "It's remarkable how quickly society adjusts when it becomes clear which way the wind is blowing." As the wedding day approached, final preparations reached a fever pitch. Miss Hartwell, having completed her duties as governess, now that both Ashford daughters were to be married, had accepted a position with a family in Bath. She promised, however, to return for the ceremony. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," she told Phoebe warmly during their farewell. "To see you take your rightful place as a duchess. It validates everything I believed about you from the beginning." Lady Victoria insisted on a ceremony at St. George's, Hanover Square, followed by a reception at Ravenscroft Manor. The guest list included nobility, political figures, and even a royal representative, a far cry from the modest wedding Phoebe might once have expected. The night before the ceremony, unable to sleep, Phoebe wandered down to the library at Ravenscroft. To her surprise, she found her father there, gazing thoughtfully at the family portrait painted when Phoebe was 16 and Caroline 14. "Papa," she used the childhood name spontaneously. "Couldn't you sleep either?" Sir William turned with a warm smile. "Just reminiscing, my dear. Tomorrow my eldest daughter becomes a duchess. Quite a change from the little girl who used to sit on my knee while I read Shakespeare." Phoebe joined him before the portrait. "I'm still that girl in many ways. Books and Papa's stories, those were my greatest joys." "And now?" he asked gently. "What brings you joy now, Phoebe?" "Charles," she answered without hesitation. "The way he sees me, truly sees me, when for so long I felt invisible. The life we'll build together at Westmoreland, the good we might do with his resources and position." Sir William's eyes grew misty. "I've always been proud of you, Phoebe. Your mother and we perhaps focused too much on Caroline's prospects, thinking your happiness lay in intellectual pursuits rather than marriage. I hope you can forgive us for not seeing your full potential." "There's nothing to forgive," Phoebe assured him, leaning her head on his shoulder as she had as a child. "I didn't see it myself until Charles showed me what was possible." The wedding day dawned clear and bright, a perfect June morning. The ceremony was everything Lady Victoria had dreamed. St. George's filled with flowers and London's elite, Caroline resplendent as maid of honour, Sir William proud and emotional as he escorted Phoebe down the aisle. From her seat near the front, Miss Hartwell watched with quiet pride as her former pupil approached the altar with dignified grace. But for Phoebe, the only moment that truly mattered was when she reached Charles at the altar and saw the love shining in his dark eyes as he took her hand in his. "You are beautiful," he whispered as they turned to face the clergyman. And for perhaps the first time in her life, Phoebe truly felt beautiful. Not because of her appearance, Though Isabel had worked wonders with her chestnut hair, and the white Duchess satin gown was indeed magnificent, but because of the way Charles looked at her, as though she were the only woman in the world, the vows were exchanged, the rings placed on trembling fingers, and with a kiss that balanced dignity with genuine emotion, Phoebe Ashford became Her Grace, the Duchess of Westmoreland. The reception at Ravenscroft Manor was a glittering affair. Even Lady Victoria had to admit that society had embraced the match with unexpected enthusiasm. The initial whispers about the Duke choosing the plain Ashford girl had given way to speculation that he had recognized something special in Phoebe that others had missed, leading many to reassess their own judgment of her. "Your Grace," Lady Harrington murmured as she congratulated Phoebe, "I always said you had a certain distinction about you. Not conventional beauty, perhaps, but a genuine elegance that surpasses mere prettiness." Phoebe accepted this revisionist history with gracious amusement, exchanging knowing glances with Charles whenever such comments were made. They both understood the fickleness of society's approval, and neither placed much value in it. What did touch Phoebe deeply were the genuine well-wishes from those who had shown her kindness before her elevation. Miss Hartwell, who had always encouraged her intellectual pursuits; Edmund Blackwood, whose dignified service had often included small considerations for Miss Phoebe's comfort; and of course Isabel, who wept openly as she helped Phoebe change from her wedding gown into a travelling costume for the journey to Dover, where they would catch the packet to France to begin their honeymoon. Now, Belle," Phoebe chided gently, "no tears today. You'll be joining us at Westmoreland in a month, remember? This is hardly goodbye." "I know, Your Grace," Isabel sniffled, still struggling to use Phoebe's new title. "It's just, I'm so happy for you. You deserve all this joy." Phoebe hugged her impulsively. "Thank you, Belle, for believing that even before I did." As the newlywed couple prepared to depart, Caroline approached with an unexpected gift, a leather-bound journal embossed with Phoebe's new monogram. "For recording your adventures as a duchess," she explained, embracing her sister. "And perhaps for drafting that novel you've always talked about writing." "Caroline, how thoughtful." Phoebe was genuinely touched. "I'll treasure it. Just promise me one thing," Caroline whispered in her ear. "When you write your story, don't cast me as the shallow, beautiful sister. I'd like to think I'm a bit more complex than that." Phoebe laughed, squeezing her sister's hands. "I promise. You'll be the beautiful sister with hidden depths and a generous heart." Sir William's farewell was emotional but brief. "Be happy, my girl," he said simply, pressing a fatherly kiss to her forehead. "That's all I've ever wanted for you." Lady Victoria, to everyone's surprise, was weeping openly. "My daughter, a duchess," she kept repeating, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "And such a love match. Who would have thought it?" "Not you, certainly, Mother," Phoebe replied with gentle humor, kissing her cheek. "But I forgive you completely." At last, amidst a shower of rose petals and cheers from the assembled guests, Charles handed Phoebe into their travelling carriage. As the door closed, giving them their first moment of privacy all day, he drew her into his arms. "Happy, my Duchess?" he murmured against her temple. "Blissfully," she sighed, relaxing into his embrace. "Though I confess I'm relieved the ceremony is over. All those eyes watching us." "They were watching you," Charles corrected. "And no wonder. You were radiant today, Phoebe." She smiled up at him. "It's still strange to think that I'm actually your wife now, that this isn't some elaborate dream from which I'll awaken back in the library at Ravenscroft, alone with my books." "If it's a dream," he replied, his dark eyes intent on hers, "then we're sharing it, and I have no desire to wake." His kiss was deeper now, freed from the constraints of public observation, and Phoebe responded with the same passion that had surprised them both during their courtship. For all her bookish exterior, she had discovered within herself a capacity for emotion and desire that matched Charles's own. Their honeymoon, a month touring France and Italy, was a revelation for both of them. Away from London's prying eyes and social expectations, they discovered each other fully, not just as lovers, but as companions, confidants, and partners. Charles delighted in showing Phoebe the art and architecture she had previously known only through books, while she introduced him to literary salons and philosophical discussions that enriched his understanding of the world. "I've never seen Paris like this before," he confessed one evening as they strolled along the Seine. Through your eyes everything is fresh, meaningful. I've traveled all my life, yet I feel as though I'm truly seeing these places for the first time. Phoebe squeezed his arm. That's how I feel about everything since meeting you. As though I was half asleep before, and now I'm fully awake to life's possibilities. By the time they returned to England and journeyed north to Westmoreland Castle, they had grown even closer, their bond strengthened by shared experiences and deepening trust. Phoebe had shed much of her initial insecurity, while Charles had revealed vulnerabilities beneath his aristocratic reserve that few had ever been permitted to see. Their arrival at Westmoreland as husband and wife was marked by celebration throughout the estate. Tenant farmers and their families lined the approach road, cheering for their duke and new duchess. The staff had decorated the castle entrance with flowers and greenery, while Mrs. Ellis, the housekeeper, had prepared a welcome feast that showcased the best of Yorkshire's produce. "Your first official duty as Duchess will be tomorrow morning," Charles informed Phoebe that evening as they relaxed in the private sitting room adjoining their bedchambers. Traditionally, the Lady of Westmoreland distributes food and medical supplies to the tenants on the first of each month. Phoebe looked up from her book with interest. "That sounds like an excellent tradition. Will you accompany me?" "If you wish, though it's typically the Duchess's domain. My mother was particularly devoted to the welfare of our tenants. The older families still speak of her with great affection." Phoebe closed her book, marking her place carefully. "Tell me about her, Charles. You rarely mention your parents." A shadow passed over his face. "My father was a complicated man, brilliant in business matters, expanding the Westmoreland holdings considerably during his lifetime, but cold in personal relationships. My mother was his opposite, warm, compassionate, beloved by all who knew her." "You take after her, I think," Phoebe said softly. He raised an eyebrow. "Most would say I inherited my father's austerity. On the surface, perhaps. But I've seen the man beneath, the one who notices when a servant is unwell, on the surface, perhaps. But I've seen the man beneath, the one who notices when a servant is unwell, who remembers the names of tenant children, who created a private library for his bookish wife." Charles rose and came to sit beside her, taking her hand in his. "You see me too clearly, Phoebe. I've spent years cultivating a forbidding exterior, yet you penetrated it within moments of our first meeting. Just as you saw past my plain appearance to the woman beneath," she replied. "We're well matched in that way, I think." The following morning, Phoebe rose early, eager for her first official duty as Duchess. Isabel, who had arrived from London the previous week, helped her dress in a practical but elegant gown of deep green wool, suitable for moving among the tenant cottages. "The staff is saying the tenants are most excited to meet you, Your Grace," Isabel reported as she arranged Phoebe's hair in a simple but dignified style. "There hasn't been a duchess in residence for so long, and the Duke has spoken so warmly of you." "Has he indeed?" Phoebe smiled at the thought. "Well, I shall do my best not to disappoint them." The distribution took place in the castle's great hall, where long tables had been set up with baskets of food, bundles of clothing and medicinal supplies. As each tenant family approached, Mr. Simmons announced their name and farm, while Mrs. Ellis quietly informed Phoebe of any particular needs or circumstances she should know. "The Wilsons, Your Grace, from North Pasture Farm. Mrs. Wilson is expecting their 6th child next month." Phoebe greeted the sturdy farmer and his weary-looking wife with genuine warmth. "Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Wilson, a pleasure to meet you. I understand congratulations are in order." Mrs. Wilson curtsied awkwardly, hampered by her advanced pregnancy. "Thank you, Your Grace. We're hoping for a girl this time, after 5 boys. Girls can be a blessing," Phoebe agreed, signaling for an extra package of baby linens to be added to the Wilsons' basket, "though I'm sure your sons are a credit to you." "They are that, Your Grace," Mr. Wilson affirmed proudly. "The oldest, Tom, has a way with horses that even the Duke has noticed. Perhaps he might be considered for a position in the stables when he's older," Phoebe suggested, making a mental note to mention it to Charles. Good horsemanship is always valued at Westmoreland. The Wilsons departed beaming, and so it continued through the morning, Phoebe learning names and circumstances, offering not just material assistance, but genuine interest in the lives of those dependent on the estate. Charles observed from nearby, occasionally adding his own comments but largely allowing Phoebe to establish her own relationship with the tenants. "You were magnificent," he told her afterward, as they walked through the kitchen gardens where summer vegetables were ripening in neat rows. "The tenants are already half in love with their new duchess." Phoebe laughed. "Hardly that, but they seemed pleased to be heard. So many mentioned your mother's kindness, how she remembered their children's names, inquired after elderly relatives, knew exactly which families needed extra support." "You remind me of her," Charles said softly. "She would have adored you, Phoebe." "I wish I could have known her." Phoebe stopped to examine a particularly fine stand of rosemary. "I have so much to learn about managing an estate of this size. Your mother seems to have set a high standard." "You'll exceed it," Charles said with conviction. "Already you've suggested improvements to the tenant cottages that neither my mother nor I considered. Those new ventilation systems from your father's estate will make a significant difference to health conditions." As summer gave way to autumn, Phoebe settled into her role as Duchess of Westmoreland with growing confidence. She established a lending library for tenant children, updated the estate's accounting systems, and implemented modern sanitation improvements in the village, all while mastering the social duties expected of her position. Charles watched her flourish with pride and delight. "You were born for this role," he told her one crisp October evening as they shared a quiet dinner in their private dining room. "Westmoreland has never been better managed." "High praise from a man who once managed it single-handedly," she teased, though pleasure at his approval warmed her. "But I do love it, Charles. The responsibility, the chance to make meaningful improvements, even the social obligations, though I confess I still prefer our quiet evenings alone to grand entertainments." "As do I." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Which is why I've been thinking, perhaps we might limit our time in London this season, unless you've developed a taste for ballrooms and soirees." Phoebe laughed. "Goodness, no. I'm perfectly content to remain at Westmoreland for the winter, though we should perhaps visit my family at Christmas. Caroline's letters hint that she may have news to share." "A suitor at last?" "I suspected as much from Sir William's latest correspondence. He mentioned a certain Lord Harrington's son paying particular attention to her." "James Harrington?" Phoebe's eyes widened. "Why, he's considered the most eligible bachelor in England since you were unmarried. How appropriate that he should be drawn to Caroline." Charles's expression grew thoughtful. "Actually, I met young Harrington at my club last month. Intelligent fellow, interested in agricultural improvements and tenant welfare, not at all the usual society fop. I think he might see beyond Caroline's beauty to the person beneath, just as you saw me," Phoebe finished softly. "Oh, I do hope so. Caroline deserves someone who values her true self." They were interrupted by a discreet knock at the door. Mr. Simmons entered, bearing a silver salver with a telegram. "From London, Your Grace. Marked urgent." Charles opened it, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern as he read, "It's from Sir William. Lady Victoria has fallen ill. Influenza, the doctors believe. They request our immediate return to London." Phoebe rose immediately. "We must go at once. If you'll excuse me, I'll speak with Isabel about packing." "Of course. I'll have the carriage prepared and send a telegram that we'll depart on the morning train." They reached London the following evening to find Ravenscroft Manor in a state of controlled anxiety. Sir William greeted them in the entrance hall, his face drawn with worry. "Thank you for coming so quickly. The doctor says the crisis has passed, but Victoria remains very weak. She's been asking for you, Phoebe." "I'll go to her at once," Phoebe said, already removing her travelling gloves. "Charles, would you—" "I'll wait here with Sir William," he assured her. "Take all the time you need." Lady Victoria lay propped against pillows in her darkened bedchamber, her normally vibrant face pale and drawn. She roused slightly as Phoebe entered. "Phoebe, is that you, my dear?" "Yes, Mother." Phoebe approached the bed, taking her mother's frail hand. "Charles and I came as soon as we received Father's telegram. How are you feeling?" "Better now that you're here." Lady Victoria's voice was weak but determined. "The doctors are being ridiculous, keeping me confined like this. I have so much to do. Caroline's presentation at court is in just 2 months." "Caroline can wait," Phoebe said firmly. "Your health is more important." Lady Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "You're a good girl, Phoebe. I haven't always— that is to say, I should have—" "Hush, Mother." Phoebe squeezed her hand gently. "There's no need for this." "There is," Lady Victoria insisted, some of her old vigor returning briefly. I misjudged you, Phoebe. I was so fixed on Caroline's beauty, so certain it was the path to a brilliant match, that I overlooked your qualities. Can you forgive a foolish mother?" Phoebe felt a surge of compassion. For all her social ambitions and sometimes shallow values, Lady Victoria had always wanted what she believed was best for her daughters. "There's nothing to forgive," she assured her. "You raised me to be educated, well-mannered, capable, all qualities that serve me well as a duchess. And you must have done something right, for Charles fell in love with me despite my lack of conventional beauty." Lady Victoria managed a small smile. "He's a man of discernment, your Duke. I see that now. And you've blossomed, Phoebe. There's a confidence about you, a radiance that has nothing to do with physical beauty." "That's Charles's doing," Phoebe admitted. "He sees me in a way no one else ever has." "No, my dear," Lady Victoria corrected, surprising her. "The qualities were always there. He merely recognized what the rest of us were too blind to see." Over the following days, Lady Victoria's health improved steadily. By the week's end, she was well enough to join the family for tea in the drawing room, though still wrapped in shawls and confined to a chaise longue. "Now," she declared, once pleasantries had been exchanged, "Caroline must tell Phoebe her news. I've been absolutely bursting to discuss it, but Sir William insisted we wait until I was stronger." Caroline blushed prettily, exchanging a glance with her father. "It's hardly official yet, Mother. Lord James has not formally spoken to Father." "But he will," Lady Victoria insisted. "Anyone can see the young man is besotted. And with good reason. You were magnificent at Lady Harrington's musicale last month. Everyone said your performance on the harp was unparalleled." "Actually," Caroline said hesitantly, "Lord James and I mostly discussed books that evening. He's quite knowledgeable about poetry, particularly the romantic poets." Phoebe exchanged a surprised look with Charles. "Books? Caroline, I had no idea you were interested in poetry." "I wasn't particularly," her sister admitted, "but after seeing how you and Charles connected over literature, I thought perhaps I should expand my interests beyond music and watercolors. So I've been reading more, visiting museums, attending lectures at the Royal Society." "And Lord James shares these interests?" Charles inquired. Caroline nodded, her blue eyes brightening. "He does. He thinks a woman should have an educated mind as well as accomplishments. He says—" She hesitated, then continued with more confidence. "He says beauty fades, but intelligence and character endure." "Wise words," Charles approved, his hand finding Phoebe's. "It seems the Harrington men have excellent taste in women." The family's time in London extended through Christmas and into the New Year, as Lady Victoria continued her recovery. During this period, Lord James Harrington became a frequent visitor to Ravenscroft Manor, his admiration for Caroline growing increasingly evident. "He's going to propose," Phoebe predicted to Charles one evening as they prepared for a small dinner party, "perhaps even tonight." "I believe you're right," Charles agreed, adjusting his cravat. "Sir William mentioned that Harrington requested a private meeting this afternoon." "I'm so pleased for Caroline," Phoebe said, fastening a pearl necklace, a wedding gift from Charles. "Lord James seems genuinely to appreciate her for herself, not just her beauty." "A fortunate circumstance that appears to run in your family," Charles observed with a smile. "Though I must say, my love, you look particularly beautiful tonight." Phoebe turned from the mirror to face him, her amber eyes warm with affection. "Flattery, Your Grace. Merely the truth, Duchess." He drew her into his arms, careful not to disturb her carefully arranged hair. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" "Not since breakfast," she teased, echoing their early courtship. "But I believe we have a few moments before we must join the others." Later that evening, their suspicions were confirmed when Sir William called for attention at the dinner table. "Lady Victoria and I are delighted to announce the engagement of our daughter Caroline to Lord James Harrington. We could not be more pleased with this match." As champagne was poured and congratulations offered, Phoebe observed her sister's radiant happiness with satisfaction. Caroline and Lord James sat close together, their conversation animated and intimate, displaying the same genuine connection that Phoebe had found with Charles. "A love match, after all," Lady Victoria murmured to Phoebe as they watched the young couple. "Who would have thought both my daughters would marry for affection rather than advantage?" "Perhaps affection is the greatest advantage," Phoebe suggested. "Shared values, mutual respect, genuine attachment. These form a stronger foundation than any title or fortune." Lady Victoria patted her hand. "So wise, my dear. I begin to think that it is I who should have been learning from you all these years, rather than the reverse." By February, with Lady Victoria fully recovered and Caroline's engagement officially announced in the Times, Phoebe and Charles prepared to return to Westmoreland. "You will visit us this summer, won't you?" Phoebe asked her family on their final evening together. "The Scottish moors are magnificent in August, and Charles has promised to teach me fly fishing." "We wouldn't miss it," Sir William assured her. Caroline and Lord James might join us after their wedding in June, a chance for the newlyweds to become better acquainted with their future relatives. As farewells were exchanged the following morning, Caroline drew Phoebe aside for a private moment. "I've been meaning to ask, are you happy, truly happy as a duchess? All the responsibilities, the social expectations, the constant scrutiny?" Phoebe considered the question seriously. "I am, though not because of the title or position. I'm happy because I'm loved for myself, valued for my mind and character, rather than my appearance or accomplishments. The rest, the castle, the wealth, the social status, those are merely circumstances, not the essence of my contentment." Caroline nodded thoughtfully. "That's what I hoped you'd say, because that's how I feel with James. For the first time, I'm appreciated for more than my face or my musical abilities. He sees the person I want to become. Then you have everything that matters," Phoebe assured her, embracing her sister warmly. The journey back to Westmoreland was peaceful, both Charles and Phoebe content with the quiet companionship they had established. As their carriage wound through the familiar Yorkshire landscape, Phoebe gazed out at the misty moors, a sense of homecoming filling her heart. "Happy to be returning?" Charles asked, observing her expression. "Very much so," she replied. "I love my family dearly, but Westmoreland is home now. Our home." He took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "I have a confession, my love. When I first returned to London last spring, I had no intention of participating in the season. It was my solicitor who persuaded me that I should at least make an appearance at a few key events. And thank goodness he did," Phoebe laughed. "Else we might never have met." "We might not have met then," Charles corrected, "but I believe we would have found each other eventually. Some connections, Phoebe, are simply meant to be." One afternoon, a month after their return to Westmoreland, Phoebe found herself alone in the library when Isabel arrived, carrying a small package. "This just arrived for you, Your Grace," she said, handing Phoebe an elegantly wrapped parcel. "From London, I believe." Curious, Phoebe unwrapped it to find a beautifully bound book. Inside was an inscription in Caroline's flowing hand, "For my dearest sister, whose story has taught me that true beauty lies within. With love, Caroline." Isabel hesitated by the door. "Your Grace, if I might speak with you about something." "Of course, Belle," Phoebe replied, setting the book aside. "Is everything all right?" Isabel entered hesitantly, dressed not in her usual lady's-maid attire, but in a simple but respectable day dress, having just returned from the village where she'd posted her weekly letter to her family in Kent. I've had a letter from home," she began nervously. "My aunt in Bath has offered me a position as companion. It's a good position, with fair wages and kind treatment." "You're leaving?" Phoebe felt a pang of genuine loss. "But why? Have you been unhappy here?" "No, Your Grace, not at all, but I thought perhaps, with you settled now as Duchess, you might prefer someone more experienced as your lady's maid." Phoebe rose and took Isabel's hands in hers. "Belle, you've been more than a lady's maid to me. You've been a friend when I most needed one. I don't want you to go." Isabel's eyes filled with tears. "That's very kind, Your Grace. But what place would there be for me at Westmoreland? The Duke will have his own staff, and I'm sure the Duchess's lady's maid is a much grander person than I." "Actually," came a deep voice from the doorway, "the Duke would be honored if you would consider continuing in your role." Both women turned in surprise to find Charles standing there. He stepped into the room with an apologetic smile. "Forgive me for interrupting. I had come to the library to speak with Phoebe about our upcoming visit to the North Country estates, and was about to knock when I overheard your conversation. I couldn't help but intervene." "Your Grace!" Isabel dropped into a deep curtsy. "Miss Winters." Charles nodded pleasantly. "Forgive my interruption, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. Phoebe has spoken often of your kindness and support. Such loyalty deserves recognition, not dismissal." Isabel looked bewildered. But surely the Duchess of Westmoreland must have a lady's maid with more experience. The Duchess of Westmoreland, Charles replied with a warm glance at Phoebe, should have whatever makes her comfortable and happy. If that includes retaining a trusted friend in her household, I am entirely supportive. Phoebe's heart swelled with love for this man who understood her so well. You see, Belle, there's a place for you at Westmoreland if you want it. Isabel hesitated. You truly wish me to come with you, Miss Phoebe? I do, very much. A smile broke across Isabel's face. Then I accept, with gratitude. I'll write to my aunt immediately. After she had gone, Phoebe turned to Charles. That was very kind of you. He drew her into his arms, propriety momentarily forgotten in the privacy of the library. Not kind, sensible. You need people around you who knew you before you were a duchess, who value you for yourself rather than your title. As Westmoreland Castle came into view, its grey stones glowing in the afternoon light, Phoebe reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her here. From the overlooked elder daughter to beloved duchess, from resignation to joy, from shadows to light. You know, she said thoughtfully, my mother always believed beauty was the key to happiness, that Caroline's lovely face would secure her future, while my plain features confined me to spinsterhood. Your mother was wrong, Charles said simply. True beauty lies in the depth of one's character, the strength of one's mind, the generosity of one's heart. By that measure, Phoebe, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever known. As the carriage rolled through the gates of Westmoreland Castle, Phoebe Montrose, Duchess of Westmoreland, leaned into her husband's embrace, secure in the knowledge that she had found what few ever achieve. A love based not on fleeting physical attraction, but on genuine understanding, shared values, and mutual respect. The beauty others had failed to see in her had been recognized by the one person who mattered most. And in that recognition, she had discovered not only love but her own true worth, a transformation more precious than any title, more enduring than any conventional beauty could ever be. The end. Dear listener, maybe, like Phoebe, you felt invisible at times, passed over, forgotten in rooms where others seemed to shine more brightly. Maybe you felt that the best parts of life were meant for someone else. But let me gently remind you, the rarest things in life don't shout, they bloom in silence. And you, dear listener, are still blooming. Life is not always fair, but it is generous with second chances, even after 60, 70, or 80. What matters isn't how others see you, but what you carry within. Your wisdom, your memories, your strength, your story. Every line on your face holds a tale of courage, and that, more than youth, is true beauty. Let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that it is never too late to be seen, to be loved, to be valued. May you sleep tonight with peace in your heart, knowing that you matter. You are needed. You are loved. May protection surround you as you rest. May the peace you've given to others return to you tenfold. With all our gratitude, Legends of the Fall Team. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. If you felt touched by Phoebe and Charles's journey, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support helps keep this channel alive and inspires us to create more stories filled with love, redemption, and powerful twists. And remember, another beautiful story from our channel will appear at the end of this video. Click it and let yourself be carried away by another unforgettable tale.